you sort of have to let go of the positive comments and the negative comments. Because if you give power to the positive comments that you're getting and the positive feedback that you're getting from strangers, then inevitably you have to give power to the negative ones too, because both are coming from a place of very little info about who I am.
I am here with comedian, actor, writer, and all-around queer icon, Joel Kim Booster, who is about to embark on a new stand-up tour, Rude Little Pig. Hi, Joel Kim Booster.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rude Little Pig is the name of the tour that you are about to embark on. I can make some assumptions, but what was the sort of idea behind the title and the concept of this tour?
I mean, the title is really based on like a descriptor that I have used for myself within the context of my relationship.
Okay.
Like, I think that every relationship has an angel, someone who's always doing everything right, remembers to pay the bills on time, is polite to the waiters, etc. And then one person is always the rude little pig, and that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, it is.
And so the show is really, it's about that. It's very much about the relationship that I have with the two most important men in my life, which is my partner, and then also my father, who passed away right before I met my partner, which sounds more serious than it actually ends up being in the show, which is why I called it Rude Little Pig and not my dead dad and my white boyfriend. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And I read, I think in Esquire months ago, that this tour was potentially going to be sort of a reinvention for you in terms of how you're doing stand-up.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's definitely different. I think like there's similar themes, I think, threaded throughout like my work. Like, I'm a very curious person, like sex, like I think I'm known to be a very sex forward, sex positive comedian. And there's certainly some of that in this, but I do think that as personal as the show is, it's also a lot more observational than some of my other work has been, and a little bit more absurd, but still sort of the undercurrent of being deeply personal too.
Well, I'm seeing it tonight. I'm very excited to experience this. You're very open, whether it's on your podcast, Bed Dates, or in your stand-up, about relationships, open versus monogamy, the difference between straight and queer relationships, and now, as you said, you are engaged. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second, though, how is your sort of marital journey going to be incorporated into your material, and is your fiance scared?
No, I mean that's the biggest thing I think in the last like almost 4 years that we've been together. I've been doing stand-up for about 14 years now, and the first 10 years of my career, I could talk about whatever I wanted because I was just this singular entity. I wasn't really dating. I'd never had my partner is my first adult relationship. And so it's been a real adjustment because he's definitely come to shows, and he has a real job. He works in an office, and there are parts about our life I don't think he necessarily wants me to broadcast, and that is fair. And he's come to shows and afterwards sort of given me notes about things that he would like me to adjust or maybe change the names for the sake of keeping things anonymous, because I don't want my career to ruin his chances at being in the C-suite someday.
Right. I mean, you're growing up. Like, this is
exactly.
It's all coming together. It's October 25th as we shoot this, just so people know that the mood is October 25th. Yeah. But one fun thing about this election for you, I assume, is that two of your greatest sort of colleagues and co-stars, Bowen Yang from Fire Island and Maya Rudolph from Loot, are currently playing Kamala Harris and JD Vance. That must be so surreal.
It is. It's very surreal. And I remember literally moments after I found out Kamala was taking over on the ticket, I texted our Loot group chat and I was like, have fun with all of those, red-eye flights to New York this season, Maya. And I was right. She's like practically a cast member now.
And you've worked with her for 2 seasons on Loot and soon a third. And you said that working with her was sort of like a make-a-wish moment for you. What were some experiences or something that stands out as like the epitome of that make-a-wish situation for you over these 2 years?
I mean, getting relationship advice from Maya during her first season. Like, I had just started dating my partner, who's now my fiance, when we were shooting season 1. And I just remember standing with her, like getting dating advice from Maya Rudolph, like in between setups. It was so strange. And she's so warm and like, truly one of the most normal, approachable, wonderful people. I've said this so many times in the press, but like She is someone who cares very deeply about her family. It is not a 5 nanny situation at the Maya Rudolph household. She's still driving her kids to dance class and going to the competitions at the Hyatt by the airport and all of that. And it's wonderful to work on a show where the number one person on the call sheet loves their family, because it means we all get to go home at a reasonable time. Because I've worked for plenty of people who don't care if their families live or die, and you're there for a lot longer, I'll say that.
Well, I'm very grateful for you that Maya Rudolph does care for her family lives or dies. And Loot is not the only show that you've been on this year that got a lot of attention. You were in a very memorable episode of Industry, which I think sort of exploded as like the show. Before you probably knew.
I was a day one fan. I started watching it when it came out during the pandemic. I'm so glad it's getting its flowers now, because it's such a unique show. I think there's not really anything quite like it on television. I will say I don't often understand what is going on. Like, I could have been speaking Mandarin for some of the lines that I spoke in my episode, but you know, there's plenty of guidance. Conrad and Mickey, they both come from that world, and so they're really good at translating and helping you understand, like, what does all of this mean exactly? What are the stakes? Is this good? Is what I'm saying good or bad? I can't tell. You know.
I mean, and it must have been kind of wild to go full frontal on the hottest show on television.
That was like, it was so funny because when they offered me the part, they mentioned that it would involve full frontal nudity, and I was like, sure, whatever, you know, like, my nudes leaked in 2017. They've been out there for a while. They keep recirculating. I send them out with reckless abandon on the apps still, you know, so I was like, it's no big deal. Like, you know, countless people have seen my penis before. So like, what's the big deal? But then you remember, there is a big difference between a flaccid penis and a at attention penis, I'll say, because a flaccid penis can really look like anything, and then you start to think about it on the day, and you're like, oh no, I can't think about this. You have to stop thinking about it. You have to stop thinking about it. And I'm very grateful to the cast and the crew of Industry, especially Harry Lottie, who I shared most of my scenes with, who's also done full frontal in his career, and he was very like put me at ease. Everyone put me at ease. It was very like, it felt like by the time I got there and was, you know, fully out there, it was actually like a very comfortable experience.
Well, I'm glad that it was a comfortable experience for you. Another thing coming together is that you quit Twitter.
I did. My hand was sort of forced. I was hacked by Russian hackers selling MacBooks for 4 days. And because I believe Elon has fired every single human being who works at Twitter, it took 4 days and my lawyer to get my account back. And in those 4 days, I like wrote, I had like a note going on my phone of just like things that I would have tweeted in that moment had I had access to my account. And then after the 4 days, I just like looked at it and I was like, oh, this is all, no one needs to hear any of this. None of this is important at all, in fact. And so and then, you know, in the 4 days without Twitter, it was also the first 4 days in years that I haven't had someone with an anime avatar tell me I look like I smell like AIDS, you know, and I didn't miss that in my life, as it turns out. So it's been interesting. You know, I do feel slightly out of the loop, but I will say if you're on enough group chats with other terminally online people, you get all of the good tweets in your group chats. And so it's like a nice filter, you know, like I'm still getting, I know who everyone is mad at that day. I know, you know, I know all the funny memes that are coming through, but I don't have to sift through any of the trash. So it's kind of the best place to be.
And like, how did you go about protecting yourself specifically from sort of like the gay on gay toxicity that was really happening online? It must just be really hard.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really difficult. I don't always do a great job of protecting myself. I'll be really honest. I'm very sensitive. And, you know, I used to look a lot more. I used to seek it out a lot more and like be in the comments. And like, I'm definitely, you know, I'm very lucky. I will say like the majority, you scroll through, it's like positive, 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 like all the way through. And then you get to the negative, and that's the one that will stay with me for the rest of the day. But I think like what I've learned really in the last year has been that the people that really hate me don't hate me, they hate a construction of me that they have created based off of very limited context. Like they don't actually know me. They know a version of me that they might have seen on a YouTube clip or read in an interview, but it's not the totality of who I am. And because of that, you sort of have to let go of the positive comments and the negative comments. Because if you give power to the positive comments that you're getting and the positive feedback that you're getting from strangers, then inevitably you have to give power to the negative ones too, because both are coming from a place of very little info about who I am. And so as much as I appreciate people who appreciate my work, I really had to like rely on the positive feedback less in order to do my job and stay in a healthy place.
So maybe this Russian hacking was all sort of
it was such a blessing.
Yeah.
Like, thank God for Russia. I'll say that. You can put that in the interview. Thank God for Russia.
Also a blessing is your 2022 film, Fire Island. I'm a huge
you.
fan. And I'm just curious now that you have some distance from that experience, how you sort of look back on it and what you feel about all of that.
I mean, I feel really blessed and lucky and grateful that we got it made, quite honestly, because I will say that when it comes to that diversity in Hollywood, it is often a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of cycle that we're in. And I was talking to someone who worked on that film about sort of the state of the industry today. And I said, I don't think if we took this out and tried to make this movie today, it would get made. And they agreed with me. And that's sort of where we're at as an industry. And so I'm so glad that I like got in there at a time when the industry was taking bigger risks around the kind of content that they were making, especially when it comes to queer representation, because we're definitely taking a step back, I think, and getting a lot more pushback against, creating stories that center queer characters.
But I think despite that pushback, that Fire Island and your work in general is definitely part of this, like, maybe one of the only good things to come of the 2020s, which is just the explosion of like queer, mostly comic creators.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of Oh Mary, which is the talk of
Yes.
Broadway and stars 2 of your Fire
Yep.
Island co-stars. Bowen Yang's undoubtedly the MVP.
The busiest man in Hollywood.
Of SNL right now.
Yeah.
And then Julio Torres and his 2 projects this year. What does it feel like to be a part of this? And what do you think makes this cohort so special?
I mean, it is really so fun because like me and Julio and Bowen and like all of us came up together. Like I remember the first open mic I saw Julio at, and like we were waiting 2 hours to go up on stage for 90 seconds of stage time at these like shitty bars in Brooklyn. So it's so gratifying to like stand around at a party like and just be like, I can't believe we're here. Like I can't believe we did it. It's really gratifying and exciting, and it's also kind of scary too because you have to now move the goalposts a little bit and figure out, because I never like this was as far as I thought I would ever make it. And so now thinking about like what's next, it's like I never spent time conceptualizing what that would look like. And so it is a little scary to be in this phase of my career, I would say.
And I read that What's Next is a project called Again, Again, Again,
Mhm.
which is a rom-com, but
It's a rom-com. I would say it's a wedding comedy, and it is much more a movie about staying in love than falling in love. It takes place at a straight wedding, so there are straight characters in this one.
Wow, that's
a real stretch for me
Yeah.
to write. But it does center around a gay couple, and it is much more, it's very much, again, in similar fashion to Fire Island, I think, and like most of my work ripped from the headlines of my life, it is about a guy who is the best man in his best friend's wedding, and his boyfriend is bipolar and having a mental health crisis and was supposed to stay home but decides to show up at the wedding anyways, and chaos ensues as this guy tries to juggle, the responsibility of being a good friend but also trying to, manage this very difficult time in his relationship. And it's very much based on what I have put my boyfriend through, my fiance through, over the years that we've been dating and dealing with my own bipolar diagnosis.
well, I do look forward to watching you go
Yeah.
through your drama on
Yeah.
screen. I genuinely am very excited for that film. And I'm also excited for you to embark on this Little Pig tour. You're going to like several countries around the world.
Yeah. I think 7 countries in total. It's so weird to even think about like performing in places like Berlin and Paris and Amsterdam, and I just like it's a dream come true.
Well, I hope that it comes true in all the ways you want it to. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk.
Thanks
to
for
me.
having me.
No, my pleasure. 3, 2, 1.